everybody, I am Tiffany and today I'm doing another book review. Let's go! I'm so excited for this one because one, it's a contemporary and I haven't read a contemporary in quite a while, so I am proud of myself that I have read another contemporary. It was one of my book goals because I don't read enough contemporaries and I should read more contemporaries, but I don't because I love sci-fi and fantasy and dystopia. This is the first time I've read a book by this author and I know that's really sad. He's awesome and amazing and has written so many amazing books and I haven't read any of them, and so I finally read one. And so I'm really proud of myself just for really getting a goal done, which is reading a book by this author and a contemporary. And this book is Looking for Alaska by John Green. It is very widely revered. Actually, it's taught in schools apparently, according to the back of this. What school teaches this? I need to go to this school and figure it out because this is an awesome book. And this would be an awesome book to teach in class. Like I said, it is a contemporary written by John Green. He wrote The Fault in Our Stars, Paper Towns, a ton of awesome contemporary books that I need to read. For those of you who want statistics, Looking for Alaska got a 4.09 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, which is awesome. I gave it 4 stars myself. I will say for contemporaries, I've said in my past videos that it's really hard for me to get through them like all at once. It still was hard, but not because of it just being a contemporary in general. I had so much stuff going on work-wise, I didn't have as much time to read. This book, it was really easy to get through, super interesting and complex. I just really loved it. The emotional depth and the character development is so awesome in this book. I would definitely say go into this blind. And even the back of this, it doesn't reveal too much, which I really appreciated. That's my usual rule for books, is to go in blind, because then like all the twists and turns that happen, if there are any twists and turns, and the character development and everything, it hits you so much more. I'd say know your genre. Don't pick up The Fifth Wave and expect it to be contemporary, because it's not going to be that. There was never a character that was annoying to me, so that was really nice, because sometimes in books you have this one character that's just annoying and you want out of the picture. For those of you who don't know what Looking for Alaska is about, it's about this guy, they nickname him Pudge, his real name is Miles, and he ends up going to this boarding school in Culver Creek, and he ends up meeting a lot of interesting people. There's the Colonel, that's his nickname, the Kumi, Lara, and Alaska. And stuff ensues. That's all I'm going to say, because you don't need to know the whole story. Is it cry-worthy? I would say potentially. I don't usually cry in books, really. I know it's weird. There's been like 1 or 2 books that's really made me cry. Movies, I bawl my eyes out, but books for some reason, I don't know why, I don't really cry. I feel the pain, just the tears don't come streaming out of my eyes. That's really all I can completely tell you about this book. I really want to get into the spoilery section because there's so much I want to talk about. Go in completely blind if you have not read this, because that impacted me so much. I literally thought Looking for Alaska meant they were going to go find the state Alaska. I know, right? Thank you for joining me, non-spoilery people. I suggest you leave now because I'm going to go ahead and jump into the spoilery section. Go read Looking for Alaska. It's awesome. John Green, you are an amazing author. Keep writing books and doing everything you do because you're just awesome and amazing. Thank you! And I'll see you later when you come back after you have read this book and we can discuss the feels together. Alright? Alright. Goodbye, non-spoilery people. Goodbye! Oh, it was so good. I loved it. It was a pretty quick read, really easy to get through, like it was super fast in a good way. Like I said, all of the characters were awesome. The main character, Pudge, Miles, I felt so bad for him at the beginning, because the very opening sequence is literally his parents throwing a goodbye party to him, and like no one came except for 2 people, and I was like, this poor kid. Pudge, you may not be real, but I feel for you. It just gave you a sense into the character really automatically that he is a loner. He is a very philosophical character, I feel like, in a sense. He thinks a lot older, in my opinion, than what kids usually his age do. And that's one thing about all of these characters, is that they've been through a lot, so their way of thinking in the books is a little bit older than what their actual age is. I loved his thing with famous last words. That was super duper fun throughout the book. That actually was really interesting, and I was like, wow, this was actually this person's last words. That's really cool. It was nice that every character had a little thing about them that made them unique and different. The Colonel has the thing where he knows like all the capitals and the populations and all the states. Alaska, she's really into books, which is awesome. I love a character who loves books. My favorite character, I would say, would be the Colonel, because the Colonel, yes, he goes through a lot, but you can tell he's very genuine and sweet. I especially love that scene when he's with his mom. You just see how he's a mama's boy, really, and that he really loves his mom and wants to do really good for her, and I just really, really loved that moment. You did love, though, how at the very beginning with Pudge, his dad says, like, no drinking, no smoking, gives all of these rules, and immediately I'm like, he's totally gonna break them. When he set up rules like that, you're gonna break them. I didn't expect him to break the smoking on literally like the first day he was there, but I was afraid that it was going to be this whole downward spiral into more drinking, more smoking, all of that, and that would be a big problem in the book. Even though he did those things and did break those rules, it still wasn't the main focus or anything. It didn't become a huge problem. Just always know that. When rules are set up at the very beginning of a book, they're going to be broken in some regard. One of the main plot lines that really intrigued me was the whole thing with ratting out there. That was one thing about this book a little bit, is they would bring up certain issues and stuff like that, and they would go into it some, but then leave it. One of those things was with the ratting out. I would have maybe liked to see a little bit more since it's such a big deal there. A big thing that happens is that someone ratted out these two people are being in the bedroom doing stuff. They ended up getting expelled, trying to figure out who in the world did this because they almost killed Pudge over it. What did Pudge do? He just got here. Instead of just throwing him into the lake, no, they bind him up so he can't swim. Is Pudge gonna die on me right now? Because this is ridiculous. We are only however many pages into this book. He cannot die right away. And then you find out, of course, they don't do it to everybody. They're just doing it to get back at the Colonel, and the Colonel doesn't stop. He's like, I'm gonna get you back. And they do. When they put the stuff in their hair gel to make their hair blue and everything, it was just hilarious. One thing though they did drop, and I wish they would have developed it more, was the Colonel's girlfriend. She's in the beginning of the book, and she's a jerk. He's trying to look all nice for her, but she's like, you look horrible, and this opera's important. Why the heck do you look like that? Girl, can you not see he is trying for you? He is not as rich as you, so be quiet and appreciate that he's at least putting an effort. I get being a little bit annoyed because he might not have anything more formal, but still, appreciate the effort. She was a jerk. And then they end up breaking up shortly after, and then they mention her like one other time, but after that, it's just like deadline. Like, there's no mention of Sarah ever again. Takumi, I really did like Takumi overall. He was super sweet, and he was kind of the goody-goody. He didn't really smoke as much. He did the drinking a little bit, but really not as much as everybody else. And Lara I wasn't sure about at first. She was a little bit to me, but then she grew on me as the book went on. Her and Pudge's relationship was the strangest relationship I've ever seen because it literally lasts a day. It's just awkward from there. They have this whole awkward scene where they want to do stuff, and then they have to go to Alaska to have her explain it, and I was dying of laughter so hard throughout that whole entire thing. Alaska herself, she was definitely an interesting character. She did go through mood swings, and she didn't ever completely annoy me. Like, she was just really intriguing throughout the whole thing for me. She's been through a whole lot. Like, finding out her backstory about her mom and everything was so sad. The book has those moments where you have these lighthearted moments and then they're brought down by something, but in such a good, smooth, transitional way. It was just really sad, and it really lets you in on her at that point. You know she has mood swings and everything like that, and she doesn't really tell you what's wrong, and Pudge is getting annoyed, and I'm like, Pudge, stop it. And getting that insight lets you really see why she acts this way on certain things. Finding out that she ratted out those people, that was shocking. I did not expect it to be Alaska. I kind of thought it was actually going to be the Colonel, because Alaska seems like the last person to rat people out. I did feel bad for Pudge just because he did really like Alaska, and Alaska did play him, but she was head over heels for Jake, so she wouldn't ever give him up. And that last moment before everything changes, oh my gosh, later on I was like, that's just horrible. He's like head over heels because she kissed him, and she says, to be continued, and then everything changes. Let's get to the second half of this book. It did a Game of Thrones on me. Where everything is going a certain way, and then a giant bomb drops, and all the storylines and everything that you thought were going to play out just get shut off. And you're just sitting there in shock for a minute. First of all, when I first looked at the cover, I literally thought they were going to go to Alaska and find something in Alaska. But then I found out Alaska was a person. I did not think it was going to go the way it did. I thought it was going to be she does disappear, especially when it started doing before and after. It wasn't that. She goes into the car, and then as soon as that moment hit, I was like, oh no. When they gathered that meeting, Alaska wasn't there. I was like, please tell me she did not just die in that car crash. And then, of course, she just died in the car crash. One of my main characters just got killed in a contemporary. It was so heartbreaking to read Pudge yelling, "We have to wait for Alaska," and the eagle having to say that Alaska's the one that's dead. That was so heartbreaking because it's one of those moments where you find out before Pudge and Colonel do. And then you have this guilt on them and you feel so bad because they're the ones who set off the fireworks for her to escape and drive that car. I was really confused after because I didn't get what was going to happen. I really didn't. I was like, well, what does it mean by looking for Alaska then? It had this whole sad vibe over it the whole time. But it was so beautiful at the same time how it was all executed. Because then you find out looking for Alaska is figuring her out, basically, why she did what she did. And you just have all of these theories happening where it's like, maybe she committed suicide because she ran straight into that cop car. You're trying to figure out why in the world she even was hysterical that night in the first place. You don't know if you're really going to figure it all out. And that's something that's really like hard and intense and very real, because when that happens in real life, you don't really necessarily get an answer. You can only guess what was going on through their head. That moment where Pudge is asking like what her last words were and everything, it was getting me worked up. It really was. He was being a jerk to Lara though. Dude, you need to talk to her and get things straight with her because the way you treat her is horrible. So get that all straightened out because she's a good person. She's a really good person. Not like Sarah. The second half of the book, Pudge did annoy me more because, of course, I'm with the Colonel. I want to figure out as much as I can about why in the world this happened. Did she commit suicide? Was it just her being hysterical, not paying attention? What happened in that moment? And Pudge was kind of like, I don't want to remember her like that. I don't want to know what happened to her. He wasn't really listening, but having Takumi and Colonel be at him like, she wasn't in love with you. You gotta realize that. You're focusing on yourself and wanting to believe that you and her had something in the future. When she was head over heels for Jake, she wasn't going to go for you. I was with them on that. Just that last part with them all ganging up and trying to figure out everything that's going on. It was sad, but it was beautiful. This little group of people who were determined to figure out what happened to Alaska. And finding out that Takumi liked her too, that was interesting as well. He doesn't necessarily say it outright, but you can tell. And then you also realize that he has guilt, realizing that he saw Alaska that night. He could have stopped her too. He didn't help her as much as Miles and the Colonel did, but he still played a part in a sense because he let her go. And that was so intense, and their thoughts about that, saying, you know, if I loved her enough, I wouldn't let her go. I gave it 4 stars in all honesty instead of 5 stars because I really wanted to know everything that happened with Alaska. Of course you want to know exactly if her slamming into that cop car was suicide or something else entirely. You don't really know. Of course, the reader in me really wants it to be completely wrapped up, but the other side of me, the more prominent side of me, is really happy that John Green didn't do that, because in a book it is really easy to do that, but in real life it isn't like that. And it's very much like that. Like, you can find out details, but there's only so much you can get to know. And that's what it did in this novel. They figured out exactly why she drove away, and they don't know what was running through her head at that time. They don't know exactly why she ran into that cop car, or even if she meant to, because she didn't swerve whatsoever. And that's one thing I really love about John Green and why I really want to read his books, is it's just these very real scenarios, and it's not happily ever after. It's very impactful and emotional and takes turns you don't expect. But there are authors out there like John Green and everything who bring a realness to it and a situation that is more intense and you don't see a lot. Like, that was one thing I loved about Girl in Pieces when I read that, is that it's a situation that people don't really talk about as much. I just loved this book overall, and I am really happy I went in blind and didn't really get what I meant by before and after. That's really all I have to say about this book. It was wonderful. Again, if you're not looking for a long read, I think it's great. It is more depressing a little bit. It's not like, again, you're going to be sitting in your room crying an hour later. It's not like that, for me at least. It could be for other people, I don't know. But it's a really, really great book. Definitely go check it out if you haven't read it, even though I just probably spoiled the whole thing for you if you're here right now. But still, go read it, because it's one thing hearing it from me, it's one thing reading it yourself. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any other book or movie recommendations or any other type of video you want to see, like a book tag, movie tag, Q&A, whatever, just let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, whatever time of the day you're watching this, and don't forget to be awesome. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye!